Okay, so this is the part that gets a bit challenging. So now what we're trying to find is gross profit margins and net profit margins. And there's a few places you can find them. And depending on how they calculate it, there's different numbers. So I kind of try to get a feel of what's the right number, which this is something that y'all may have a really hard time with. Because for instance, let's start with the competitive landscape. This shows the net profit. It's a 6.7 and 6.9. So that's going. So the 6.9 is going to be solo because when you don't have employees, your profit margins are normally a little higher. Then 6.7 is the other one. Now the high point, which is 17.72, the way I got that is I go here, I download the CSV, which will end up looking something like this. Okay. So, and then I do a min and a max equals min so then I drag these across. I subtract the profit. So I subtract the profits here. And then I put the profit here. I put the sum here. And profit here. So then equals sum and equals 100 minus sum. So what I'm doing right now is I'm basically just fact checking them because I don't trust them. I trust people. I trust everything's inherently correct. So what I've done now is I've basically calculated maximum profit that anyone could possibly achieve based on these numbers, which are the industry and sector numbers. But I also like to include the max. And the reason for including the max is and that's how businesses go out of business. So I take that information, I copy and paste it, and go to my spreadsheet, and I paste it right here. Okay. And that's how I got my net. There's my net profit, which is the same as the other one. This one, what I did was I added the purchases. I subtracted the purchases and the wages from from revenue, and that shows me a range of my gross profits. But the purchases and the wages aren't 100% accurate. So there's another area. There's some other areas you want to check. You want to check here on the major company, the market share. You just want to copy and paste this and bring it in, which I have right here. I'm going to make it a little bigger so you can see. So specifically, I want to take the profit and divide it by the revenue to get the profit margin. And you can see here, none of these are very far off of what the average is, to 6.7 to 6.9. So there's just a few places you have to check. And then there's one more place you have to check. And this is where you can find the gross profit, which is right here. Oops. Gross profit, which is right here. And then the net income, which is right here. So this 6.9 matches the 6.9 in other places. Notice this is for under 500K in assets. You can also do all assets, which has a 4.7 net income and 60.5 gross profit. Then you can look through these, because sometimes there will be a fair, like, see, look, that one, there's barely any income, net income, and the gross profit's high. But then when you go to 1.5 mil, you got a little lower and a much higher net income. So I like to check this page and go through all these just to make sure that the estimate is accurate, the numbers I have are accurate. And once I'm fairly comfortable about these numbers, which I'm not with this one, honestly, I'm more confident that the high gross margin is around 50%. Or is more around the 60.5%, because that's more what I've seen from businesses we've interviewed and the such. And that this one's more around 50%. But if you have a number, like for instance with these ones, if you are uncertain of them, mark them in red. The reason for that is I spend a lot of time looking at these numbers, listening to the podcasts, listening to the YouTubes, and it helps me get a really good sense of what small business owners can do. I could make up the numbers if I wanted to, and they'd be fairly accurate. But I like to have data because you have to link. So if you have any questions about any values that you just aren't sure are right, mark them in red. Ask me how I do something if you're concerned with how you've compared these or how you've compared these. There's just a lot of ways of looking at the profit, and the truth of the matter is people lie. So you kind of just this part kind of takes an educated guess. Um, Another asset I like to use is this. Realistically, as a whole, the market averages a 36% gross profit margin and a 9% net profit margin. So, but when you look at the range, it is anywhere from there's some negative numbers in here. Here you've got a profit of negative 20. Meanwhile, you have a bunch of 25s. You have a 30% net income, which means after tax, you've got companies that are making up to 30% profit, complete profit. But then with the gross margins, if you look at banks and money centers, they're at nearly 100% gross margin. But then you also have ones at apparel's at 52%. But where's air transport? Air transport, 20% gross margin. So I mean, it ranges so dramatically from industry to industry and business to business, that this is a part I expect you to have the most time with. Just do the best you can. Check to see where the most consistency seems to be. And worst case, take the 4 data sources and average them out. So that's how you find the profit margin. I'm really sorry this portion is challenging because it's inconsistent data. No matter where you go, it's going to be inconsistent because there's no way, without being an accountant, to be able to pull tax data. And even then, to pull the tax data, you have to know their EIN number. You can't just say pull all tax data. I want to know this. You just have to find the best numbers you can. And so do the best you can. We understand that it's not always going to work.